Ladies and gentlemen, gather around, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another celebrity headline. It's the kind of shocking twist that makes you question if life itself is secretly scripted by reality TV producers. Yandy Smith, the powerhouse of drama and resilience, was moments away from what many feared would be her final curtain call. Doctors were fighting, fans were crying, and Mendeecees looked like a man seconds from collapse. The stage was set for tragedy. But then out of nowhere, the impossible happened. Yandy opened her eyes. Yes, in the middle of hushed whispers and tear-soaked prayers, the woman everyone thought was slipping away decided to rewrite her ending in the most dramatic way possible. But let's be clear, this isn't some peaceful Hallmark miracle. This is a scandalous, jaw-dropping plot twist that raises more questions than answers. Was this a moment of divine intervention? A stroke of medical genius? Or, and here's the kicker, was it yet another perfectly timed stunt designed to keep the Smith-Harris brand alive and trending harder than a celebrity cheating scandal on Twitter? The bigger question now is, what comes next? Because Yandy may have opened her eyes, but has she opened Pandora's box? From the very beginning, Yandy Smith has been one of those names you either love to death or love to hate. A staple of love and hip-hop, a self-branded boss, and a woman who never shies away from the cameras, even when the camera should probably have been turned off. And let's be real, if there's drama in the room, Yandy is either in the middle of it, stirring it, or somehow monetizing it. That's her legacy. That's her brand. But what happens when the drama turns deadly? That's exactly what the world has been forced to confront in recent weeks as Yandy's health crisis spiraled out of control, leaving fans wondering if they were about to witness the tragic fall of a reality TV queen. Now, let's rewind for a second, because you can't understand this miracle twist without first diving into the chaos that led up to it. Yandy didn't just wake up one morning and decide to collapse dramatically into the arms of doctors and tear-streaked family members. No, this saga has been building for months, maybe years. Remember the whispers about exhaustion, stress, and questionable business practices? Remember the gossip blogs dropping half-baked tea about Yandy burning the candle at both ends, while trying to juggle her image as a supermom, supermogul, and superwife? All of that pressure doesn't just disappear, it builds. It festers, it waits for the perfect moment to explode. And then, it did. Reports anonymous, of course, say Yandy was found in a state so critical that even the paramedics who rushed to her aid were allegedly overheard saying, "This doesn't look good." The story leaked online faster than her publicist could spin it, and within hours, #PrayForYandy was trending. Fans were glued to their phones, waiting for any shred of news. Was she alive? Was she gone? Was this just another rumor meant to spark streams and clicks? Nobody knew. But one thing was certain, Mendeecees, her husband and longtime co-star in this drama-filled soap opera of a life, was seen outside the hospital looking like a man shattered into pieces. Now, Mendeecees isn't exactly a stranger to public meltdowns. We've seen him cry, we've seen him fight. We've seen him play the devoted family man while simultaneously drowning in scandal. But this was different. Witnesses claim he broke down completely, collapsing against the wall of the ICU, whispering her name like he was already rehearsing his final goodbye. Imagine the memes, the TikToks, the emotional montages fans were already editing. The narrative was writing itself, the powerful Yandy, cut down in her prime, leaving behind her family, her empire, and a million unanswered questions. But here's where it gets interesting, because the more you dig into the story, the murkier it becomes. Doctors allegedly worked for hours trying to stabilize her. There were whispers of complications, of mysterious medical records being sealed, of certain unofficial visitors showing up at the hospital at ungodly hours. One supposed nurse even posted anonymously that the hospital staff was told to keep things quiet, almost like someone wanted the truth buried before it could ever see the light of day. And what does that tell you? That maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a simple medical emergency. Maybe this was bigger, much bigger. Think about it. Yandy's brand thrives on attention. Every major scandal she's been part of somehow circles back to her, like a magnet pulling chaos straight into her lap. From messy love and hip-hop feuds to questionable activism stunts, to her never-ending war of words with anyone who dares cross her, Yandy has built an empire on drama. And the timing of this near-death crisis? Suspicious doesn't even begin to cover it. Right as the spotlight was starting to dim, right as newer, shinier scandals were threatening to push her off the trending page, suddenly Yandy's fighting for her life. Mendeecees is sobbing for the cameras, and fans are pulled right back into the narrative. Coincidence? Or strategy? Of course, the public didn't care about strategy in that moment. They cared about tears. They cared about hashtags. They cared about whether Yandy was going to live or die. And as the hours stretched on, the suspense built to unbearable levels. Fans were refreshing their feeds every 2 seconds. Bloggers were scraping together whatever crumbs of information they could find. And even mainstream outlets started covering the story like it was a national emergency. You'd think the White House was about to release a statement the way people were panicking. And then came the silence. Days passed and no real updates came from the family. Just vague Instagram captions, cryptic quotes, and enough ambiguity to keep everyone guessing. Some fans began speculating the worst. Others accused Yandy's team of playing games with people's emotions. And then, just when it seemed like the story had hit its tragic peak, the twist happened. Yandy opened her eyes. According to reports, it wasn't some gradual process. It wasn't a soft cinematic moment where the monitors beep and everyone cheers. No, it was sudden, sharp and dramatic, just like Yandy herself. One moment, her family was bracing for the worst. The next, she was allegedly staring right at Mendeecees with eyes wide open, like a ghost refusing to stay buried. The shock was so intense that Mendeecees, who had already been unraveling for days, allegedly collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Witnesses say it was a scene so dramatic it felt scripted. And maybe it was. Because here's the thing, when you live your life under the glare of reality TV cameras, can anyone ever really tell the difference between reality and performance? Was this truly a miraculous recovery? Or was it the biggest plot twist since reality television first discovered the art of the confessional? Fans were divided. Half of them wept tears of joy, calling it proof that miracles exist. The other half rolled their eyes, muttering that this felt way too convenient, way too polished, way too on brand for Yandy to pull off. And honestly, both sides had a point, because no matter how you slice it, Yandy's awakening didn't just save her life, it reignited her relevance. Suddenly, the woman everyone thought was gone was back in the headlines, dominating every feed, every blog, every conversation. And as for Mendeecees, his breakdown outside the ICU became the viral clip of the week, a symbol of heartbreak and devotion that fans ate up like it was their last meal. But if you think the story ends here, you're sorely mistaken. Because this so-called miracle opened the door to even bigger scandals, deeper secrets, and questions nobody seems to want to answer. Like what really happened during those critical hours when her condition was kept under wraps. Who exactly was showing up at the hospital in the middle of the night? And why are there whispers of medical documents being scrubbed before reporters could get their hands on them? This is where things start to get dark, because once you peel back the layers of this so-called miracle, you start finding details that don't just raise eyebrows, they practically scream for attention. And the first red flag? The timeline. Yandy's team put out vague statements about her condition, but none of them matched up with what hospital insiders were leaking anonymously online. According to one alleged staffer, Yandy's chart showed inconsistencies, like treatments being listed that weren't actually performed, and gaps in time where no notes were recorded at all. Almost as if someone was trying to rewrite the medical history before it could become public knowledge. And here's where the whispers turn into full-blown conspiracy theories. Some claim that powerful connections may have played a role. Remember, Yandy has always prided herself on being connected politicians, activists, business moguls, you name it. If someone with that much influence suddenly ends up in a hospital with a life-threatening emergency, are we really supposed to believe it all gets handled by the book? Or is it more likely that favors were called in, that certain stories were suppressed, that the truth was packaged and delivered in a way that maximized sympathy and, of course, exposure? Let's not forget, this isn't Yandy's first tango with controversy. Over the years, she's been accused of exploiting activism for clout, of stretching the truth about her businesses, of carefully constructing a narrative where she's always the victim, the fighter, the one who rises above. And every single time, the drama has translated into headlines, interviews, and social media attention. Is it really so far-fetched to think this near-death saga fits the same pattern? But if this was truly just another act in the never-ending soap opera, then who benefits the most? Let's look at the players. First, Yandy herself. Overnight, she goes from fading into the background of the reality TV cycle to becoming the centerpiece of a viral resurrection story. Suddenly, her name is trending worldwide, her fan base is re-energized, and she's once again at the center of attention. Second, Mendeecees. For years, his image has been complicated, to say the least. Legal troubles, prison time, questionable decisions. But now, he's the heartbroken husband who collapses in tears at his wife's bedside. He's the loyal man holding it together for his family. That's a narrative reboot if I've ever seen one. And finally, let's not ignore the network and producers who have built empires off the Rocksmith-Harris brand of chaos. For them, this isn't a tragedy, it's ratings gold. Of course, the public reaction has been as messy as you'd expect. On one side, you have fans who are genuinely overjoyed. They're crying, they're posting prayers, they're making edits of Yandy opening her eyes set to inspirational music. On the other, you've got skeptics tearing the whole thing apart. This looks staged, one viral tweet read. She's not just waking up for the first time with perfect makeup and cameras in the room. Come on, another commenter wrote. Every time her spotlight dims, something miraculous happens. Y'all really falling for this again? And then there's the middle ground, the people who desperately want to believe, but who can't ignore the cracks in the story. Meanwhile, so-called insiders are leaking even juicier details. One friend of the family told a gossip blogger that Yandy's hospital stay has cost upwards of $500,000 already, with luxury upgrades to her room that most patients could never dream of. We're talking catered meals, private security, and even rumors of a professional glam squad being flown in. Yes, you heard that right, glam in the ICU. If that doesn't scream reality star priorities, I don't know what does. And then there's the matter of who's footing the bill. Some claim Mendeecees has been scrambling behind the scenes, calling in favors, even dipping into funds that aren't exactly squeaky clean. Allegedly, a financial paper trail shows sudden large withdrawals from accounts tied to business ventures that are, let's just say, not very transparent. If true, that could open up a whole new can of worms, because the last thing this family needs is another scandal involving money mismanagement. But the circus doesn't end there. Reports have surfaced that multiple reality TV producers have already pitched the idea of a resurrection special, an entire episode or spin-off documenting Yandy's fight for life, her miraculous awakening, and the emotional fallout. Think about it. The camera's already captured Mendeecees' tears. The fans are hooked, and the storyline practically writes itself. Some even say contracts are being drafted as we speak. Because why let a near-death experience go to waste when you can monetize it, package it, and sell it back to the same audience that's been feeding off your chaos for years? And yet, underneath all the glamour, the leaks, and the spin, there's something undeniably chilling. The fact that we don't really know what happened. Was this truly a medical emergency, or was it something more sinister? Some have whispered about stress-induced collapse, others about hidden health conditions, and still others about substances that were conveniently never mentioned in official reports. The inconsistencies pile up, and the truth gets harder and harder to find. The fallout, however, is already spilling over into unexpected places. Fans have started digging into Mendeecees' past again, resurfacing old clips, old charges, old headlines. Because the internet never forgets, and in the court of public opinion, everything is fair game. Yandy's so-called miracle isn't just reviving her. It's reviving every skeleton this family has ever tried to bury. And that's dangerous. Because once the public starts connecting dots, you never know which way the narrative will swing. Will this become a story of hope and redemption? Or will it morph into yet another cautionary tale of fame, money, and manipulation gone too far? And let's be real, this family has never been strangers to legal heat. With the whispers about financial irregularities tied to her hospital care, with Mendeecees' history, with producers allegedly circling like vultures, it's only a matter of time before the authorities start sniffing around. Because nothing this messy stays confined to gossip blogs forever. At some point, real investigations happen, real consequences come knocking, and the spectacle turns into a nightmare. And that brings us right to the edge of what could be the biggest twist yet. Because Yandy may have opened her eyes, but what she's waking up to is a storm bigger than anything she's ever faced before. And this time, the cameras won't be able to protect her, because when the smoke clears and the hospital lights dim, what's left behind is never just a miracle headline. It's the consequences, the whispers, the investigations that creep in once the cameras pack up and the hashtags fade. Yandy may have opened her eyes, but now she's opening herself up to a tidal wave of fallout that could easily drown her carefully curated empire. Let's start with the obvious: money. The costs tied to her so-called miracle recovery aren't just sky-high, they're astronomical. We're talking six figures that somehow ballooned into seven, with no clear explanation of how it's all being covered. One supposed leak claims the family quietly reached out to business partners for emergency funding. Translation: people with questionable backgrounds suddenly swooping in to save the day. And you don't just take money like that without strings attached. Strings that eventually turn into ropes. Ropes that can strangle careers. If that doesn't spell future scandal, nothing does. And then comes the legal angle. When you've got sealed medical files, financial irregularities, and allegations of hush money being handed to hospital staff, you're basically laying out a welcome mat for investigators. Sources say state health officials are already reviewing certain aspects of the case, which is bureaucratic code for "we're digging, and we don't like what we're seeing." Imagine what happens if even half of these whispers turn out to be true. The Smith-Harris empire doesn't just wobble, it crumbles. But beyond money and legality, there's something even more volatile at play: public trust. Reality stars survive on narrative control. As long as fans buy into the storyline, whether it's love, heartbreak, triumph, or tragedy, the brand stays alive. But the moment that trust starts to slip, the whole machine starts to sputter. And right now, fans are split right down the middle. For every person calling Yandy's awakening a miracle, there's another calling it a performance. That's dangerous ground. Because once the audience starts questioning whether the drama is real, the whole spectacle starts to feel cheap. And when things feel cheap, people stop tuning in. The irony is, Mendeecees may have made things worse without even realizing it. His public breakdown, his tears, his collapse on the hospital floor, it was raw, it was emotional, it was viral. But it also gave the story a level of theatricality that skeptics are using as ammo. He looked like he was auditioning for an Oscar, one critic wrote. Another quipped, "If this was real, why were there 3 different camera angles?" It's the kind of mockery that spreads fast. And once people start laughing at your tragedy, you lose control of the narrative. And yet, the spectacle continues. Already, there are rumblings that Yandy plans to tell her truth in an exclusive sit-down interview. You can picture it now, the carefully lit stage, the tissue box on the table, the dramatic pauses as she recounts her near-death experience. Will it be moving? Absolutely. Will it be monetized? Without question. But will it silence the skeptics? That's far less certain. Because in today's culture, one person's testimony is just another person's meme fodder. Meanwhile, the fallout is spreading beyond the family itself. Other reality stars, frenemies, and critics are weighing in, each one twisting the story for their own gain. Some are posting support, others are dropping shady subtweets, and a few are outright calling it fake news. It's turning into a civil war of clout chasing, with Yandy's survival at the center. And that, perhaps more than anything else, shows just how high the stakes are. Because when your near-death experience becomes a battleground for other people's relevance, you know you've crossed into territory where nothing is sacred. Territory where nothing is sacred. But here's the kicker. The more chaos builds, the more valuable Yandy becomes. Think about it. Networks thrive on drama. Blogs thrive on controversy. Social media thrives on scandal. Whether she's loved, hated, or doubted, Yandy is once again the center of attention. And in an industry where attention is currency, that makes her richer than ever even as the walls close in around her. Still, the looming question remains, what if the truth eventually comes out? What if investigators confirm the rumors of financial mishandling, of cover-ups, of staged moments designed to manipulate fans? What if someone inside the hospital decides they've had enough and drops receipts that blow the whole narrative apart? If that happens, Yandy's so-called miracle won't just be questioned, it'll be destroyed. And once that happens, the public won't forgive her. They'll turn on her. They'll drag her down harder than they ever lifted her up. And Mendeecees? He'll be caught in the crossfire, forced to choose between protecting his wife's image and protecting himself. Because let's be honest, if charges start flying, if financial irregularities turn into legal action, somebody will need to take the fall. And in a family built on survival, loyalty only stretches so far. The cruel irony is that in the Yandy's miracle might be her downfall. Because the very thing that brought her back, the twist that re-energized her brand, is the same thing that could unravel everything she's built. If you believe the leaks, if you believe the whispers, this isn't a story about survival at all. It's a story about manipulation, about pushing the limits of what an audience will believe, about daring fate one time too many. So where does that leave us? With a woman awake but trapped in a storm, a husband both hero and suspect, a fan base divided, and a future hanging by a thread. The miracle happened, but the aftermath may prove more dangerous than the near-death experience itself. And as much as this family loves to control the narrative, the truth has a way of slipping through the cracks. It always does, because no matter how powerful the spin, no matter how carefully crafted the headlines, reality has a nasty habit of crashing through the script. And when it does, no network deal, no Instagram caption, no staged hospital scene can stop it. Yandy may have shocked the world by opening her eyes, but the real shock is what happens next. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, standing at the edge of yet another reality TV cliffhanger that feels less like life and death, and more like life as a prophet. Yandy opens her eyes, Mendeecees collapses, the cameras roll, and the rest of us are left wondering, was this a miracle? Or was this marketing? Was it fate? Or was it fabrication? And that's the real question you need to wrestle with. Because let's not pretend this is just about a hospital bed or a husband's tears. This is about the blurred line between authenticity and performance, between private suffering and public spectacle. If everything in their world is a storyline, then what's real anymore? Do you even care as long as you're entertained? Here's where you come in. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you buy the miracle, or do you smell a setup? Are you moved by Mendeecees' emotional collapse? Or do you think he was rehearsing his lines for the next reunion special? Don't just scroll, don't just lurk, let your voice be heard. Because the louder the conversation gets, the more pressure it puts on the truth to finally come out. And if you think this story is wild, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The twists only get crazier, the leaks only get messier, and the scandals only get juicier from here. Hit that like button if you're ready for the next bombshell. Subscribe if you refuse to be the last to know. And turn on notifications because in a saga like this, the next chapter could drop at any second. Stay locked in, because if Yandy's eyes are open, then so should yours be. The game isn't over, it's just getting started.